intro. What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Jordan Weber, and today we're going to talk about training principles, strategies, and then we're going to go over demonstrations of all those strategies that we talk about. So the first principles and strategies are you want to make sure that we're progressing through simple, easy exercises to more complex exercises in our workout. So obviously we don't want to start with the hardest thing. We want to start with something easy like self-myofascial release, soft tissue work, stretching, mobility work, before you get into the activation, stability, or strength exercises or dynamic movements. Okay, so we slowly kind of warm up the body, and then after that is when we want to start our power training. So power training is super important when you're strength training because most people lack the intensities that reach power training status. So you have to go pretty high intensity depending on what it is. It can be light implement power training or heavy implement power training. So light implement power training is anything like metabolic slams, throws, box jumps, plyometrics, that type of thing. And then you have your heavy implement power training, which is your Olympic lifts, your dumbbell snatches, your kettlebell swings, that type of thing. So you have your light and your heavy implement power training methods. Okay, you also have your mobility strategy in the beginning of your workout. Then after your power, you go into your strength aspect of your workout. So the strength training aspect of your workout, we want to think pretty low reps, high intensity, but we also want to fluctuate the intensities and reps every 3 to 6 weeks. So for example, if you're going high intensity and low reps for 3 to 6 weeks, make sure you follow it up with lower intensities and higher reps for 3 to 6 weeks. That is the basic periodization, linear periodization strategy that works for most programs. You don't have to think outside the box if you're a newbie. You don't have to think about trying to peak specific time. You want to make sure that your workouts just include full body workouts every single time, unless you're into bodybuilding where you can have more of a body part split, or if you just prefer body part splits, you can do that. I prefer full body for most of my workouts because I know if I only get 2 to 3 workouts per week, that I get all of my body parts. Okay, you want to get about 6 to 10 total sets per week of each major muscle if you're trying to grow that specific muscle. So making sure that you're hitting your chest 6 to 10 sets per week, your back, whether it's upper pulling or rowing, 6 to 10 sets per week, squatting and hinging, 6 to 10 sets per week. And then also any type of core exercises, you want to make sure you are strengthening your core with about 6 to 10 sets per week. So those are all things that we program in our strength training aspect of our workout. After the workout is when you can perform some high intensity interval training. You can do some long, slow duration training, like walking uphill on a bike, or just going slowly on a bike, or walking uphill on a treadmill, or going slowly on a bike. So choosing either of those, long, slow duration or high intensity interval training, where you're going high intensity for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you're kind of going really easy, or you're kind of breaking for about 15 to 30 seconds, and then you're repeating that 4 to 8 times. So if it's your phase 1 or your first week, you might only want to do that 4 times in week 1, and then follow it up week 2 with 5 reps, so on to 6 reps. And then when you go into phase 2 of training, you might repeat 8 times twice. So you might have 2 sets of 8 high intensity intervals. So just depending on what your goals are, whether you want to improve your high intensity interval training strategies and to get a better cardiac output, then you want to make sure that you're including both low intensity interval training and high intensity interval training. So starting with the mobility aspect of training, what I like to complete, or what we do in Certified Functional Strength Coach approach, is we start with self-myofascial release or foam rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that now. The first thing we do is I like to start with the ankles and then work my way up toward my upper back, and then work the front and sides of my body. So what I'll start with is I'll go right above the the heel and you're on your Achilles tendon here. Not a lot of muscle in this area, just a lot of tendons and some muscles on the sides. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go side to side. I'm going to use my opposite foot to push into the ground, and I'm also going to push down into the device with my ankle, so that when I go side to side, I might feel a little pressure. Now, if I do a lot of jumping or running, you might feel this immediately. It might actually hurt. If you haven't trained jumping or running and you're well recovered, or you do those things a lot and you're just used to them, you may also not feel that much. Okay, then we're going to go up and down from the ankle to the calf. So ankle to midway up, about 5 times. And all we're doing here is we're just kind of massaging that tissue. We're also assessing the tension of the tissue. Now we're going to go to the mid calf. First like to go side to side. I'm still pressing the calf down into the roller, and then I'm going to roll from the knee to the mid calf. Now I'm showing you a full section or full representation of getting the lower limb, posterior limb, which is the calf, the soleus, or we call that the gastrocnemius, is that big muscle right there, and right behind it is your soleus. I can add more pressure by crossing over and bringing my hips off the ground, okay? And then I'll just continue to the other side. So going from the ankle, side to side, right above the heel, okay? I might work my way up if I don't feel anything right away. If I feel a little bit of tension or just feels like, that kind of sweet spot area, then you might want to press into it or hold that area. Okay, I'm going to work my way up to the calf and roll from ankle to calf. Now you might experience different things on different sides of the body because we are asymmetrical. Okay, everything we do is asymmetrical. We're always kind of preferring one side over the other, so therefore a lot of even the internals are asymmetrical, like our liver, where our heart is placed. All these things kind of change the direction and flow of our bodily movements, which may cause different muscles on sides of the body to be tighter or looser, more resilient or less resilient, more adaptable or less adaptable, less stable or more stable. Okay, or you could say less strong or more strong. Okay, now I feel it on the outside here, which is the front anterior portion of the lower limb, and that is called the anterior tibialis. So that sits in front of the tibia, hence anterior tibialis. And that, for me, I feel a little bit more pressure. So what I mean by pressure is what we're trying to sense is about a 7 to 10, pain threshold. So if it's 10, it's unbearable and it hurts. If it's 9, you're getting close to it being unbearable. If it's 8, it's too high still. If it's 7, it's just right. If it's 6, it's a little bit too low. So I'm looking for like a 7. So this is like a 7, 7.5, which is like perfect. Okay, you can tell that there's like the tissue is just, there's something going on there. So pressing into it is causing some type of neurological kind of tingling feeling, almost like you've hit a sweet spot. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find sweet spots everywhere we go. For me, this lower limb on the anterior side, where I broke my fibula, okay, there's 2 bones there, tibia and fibula. That muscle, for me, gets really tight and also feels really good after and during the time I roll this, okay? If I don't do it for a while, I'll definitely notice that I haven't done it. And so what we do when we foam roll is we want to make sure that we're rolling at least twice a week. So that was a representation of how I get my calves, especially how I get that side muscle right here. You have some peroneal muscles in here as well. Now we're going to move up to the hamstring. So the hamstring, you can't really get that well on a roller, but you can do it a little bit better with like a softball because you're going to get a little bit more acute pressure or kind of pointed pressure. So you'll be able to pinpoint each spot and then kind of sit on a softball. You can also do this seated on a bench, but we're not going to go over the hamstrings today on the bench or with softball. So I'll just show you how you might be able to do it with a roller. Again, you're not going to get as good of benefits, I think, with this than if you had what I call an ORB ball or lacrosse ball. If you're seated on a bench, you can get a little bit of effect. So I'm going to go ahead and target each of my hamstrings, going from knee to hip. And for you, you might feel this immediately, okay? Now, the reason why you feel muscles and don't feel some muscles is a lot of different reasons, okay? So it just depends on your previous training history, your previous injury history, and basically how you feel that day. Everything matters. Yeah, you might not even want to touch a foam roller because you just don't want anyone, putting any pressure on you. So now we're going to go for the lower back. What I do is I bend my knees, I just relax everything and let the roller push my hips up. And then I'm going to take a couple inhales and exhales here. This is a nice kind of inversion too, getting my head below my heart. Then inhale through the nose, and then exhale out the mouth. And then from here, I can go side to side. I might feel it opening up the front of the hips. That's fine. We can do a little bit of stretching while we're rolling. And then what we're going to do is kind of put it on the lower back side. We don't want to feel it in the mid-spine or on the spinal cord itself. We should either be on the left side of the spine or the right side of the spine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my left foot underneath the right knee. The knee will drop toward the ground, and I'll feel that in the left side of the lower back. I can put a little bit more pressure if I turn that knee down on top of the other knee. I can also just rock side to side here if that feels good, or I can hold where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and switch side. And I'm only going to hold here for about 10 to 15 seconds, or about 1 to 2 inhales and exhales. I don't want to spend too much time here because this is a sensitive area for people, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on the lower back. But I definitely want to target, the QLs, which are the square muscles on each side of the lower back that help you stabilize the body, as well as those big erectors that are mainly what you feel. And so now we're going to move up to the mid-spine. And then from here, I'm going to have my hands across my chest. We're just going to articulate the T-spine over the roller and around the roller, extending the upper back, and then flexing forward. I'll do that 2 more times. I can adjust if I want to go higher or lower, depending on if I think it feels a little bit better. Sometimes if I'm in a position that feels almost painful or my body reacts in a negative way, almost acts like it's trying to protect itself, then I probably want to go a little bit higher on the back, okay? And then if you want, you can drop the head and neck if you don't have any neck issues, and then come back up. Now we're going to target the rhomboids and the scaps. Okay, so I'm going to protract the shoulders or scapula and bring my elbows together. That's going to help me do that. Kind of reach my elbows toward the ceiling. So I don't want to crunch. I want to bring those out toward the ceiling. And then from here, I'm going to roll up to almost the neck, but not on the neck. Right on the shoulders or the traps. And I'm going to roll to the mid-back. Now, I have to have a lot of control in my core to do this, so if this doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. I'm going to bring my elbows together, roll up the back to the traps, down into the rhomboids, traps through the rhomboids, and go for about 5 to 10 rolls. And then I kind of roll myself out of that. After that, I'm going to start targeting the lats. The lats help us reach overhead. So if you have issues reaching overhead or getting an external rotation of the shoulder, a lot of those kind of work hand in hand. You can soften those tissues up and lower the tension by kind of rolling them each week. Now, you're going to lower the tone directly right after you do this, but over time, it will help as well. But you can't just do it once and expect long-term results. This is something that you have to do continuously, and you have to do it with your workout. You can't follow it up with nothing. So don't expect just the foam roller to kind of fix any of your problems. You can't do it independently. Doing any of these training exercises or kind of parts of the sequence, foam rolling, mobility, that type of thing, each depends on each other. Okay, so we soften the tissue, then we stretch the tissue, then we activate the tissue, then we move the body, then we use explosive exercises. Okay, and then we go into our strength training followed by our conditioning. If you don't have time, you can skip the foam rolling, you can skip some of the stretching, you can skip some of the dynamic work. But you still want to make sure that you're hitting your power and your strength. Okay, so those are things you don't want to miss out on. So what I'm doing here is I'm rolling up into the armpit, down into the top rib, onto the chest, and then into the back of the posterior deltoid. I can bend the elbow at a 90-degree angle and then internally and externally rotate at the shoulder joint. So I'll feel that, it's going to be your infraspinatus, I believe. And let's see, your teres minor, we'll be pressing into, and also our teres major. So you can fact check me on those if you want. Also our latissimus dorsi, serratus anterior, posterior, pec major, minor. Okay. And then I can also bring my hands over the head and kind of slice the roller. And I like to cross my legs here and do that to get a little bit more control. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side. Sprawl out, drape the arm across. You can go hand over hand, chest to back, or you can just kind of grind in there, right in that lat. You should feel those muscles kind of pushing, moving around a little bit, maybe onto the chest if you want, into the armpit, below the armpit, onto the ribs just slightly, but not, you don't want to go too low on the ribs. You can actually kind of almost harm yourself and break your rib if you put too much pressure into the high density roller, especially a PVC pipe. You don't want to do a huge PVC pipe into your rib cage. That's not a good idea. Also, when we put this pressure here, we're going to get more pressure on the other side, in the middle and the back of our body. So these are also great breathing strategies to get into this sideline position, and also put your body on top of a roller, because it's going to push your contents forward and outward to the other side of the body. And you can focus on your breathing exercises. So if you look up PRI, Zach Couples, he does a lot of breathing techniques in this sideline position. So you have to check out those strategies. All right. So that's our posterior shoulder, lats, chest, and side of the thighs, the tops of the thighs, the TFL, the sartorius, glute medius. Okay. So, and then also the glute max. I'm going to start with the adductors. So what I'm going to do is just lay it next to me parallel, and then I'm going to roll it out and put the inside of my knee right on top of the roller. From here, I'm going to adjust myself so that I feel that pressure right on that teardrop muscle, what we call it VMO vastus medius right here. And then you should feel it right there, and you can bring the foot off the ground, put a little bit more pressure, or you can leave the foot on the ground, either or. And then we're going to roll just on that portion of the quad, which is the inside thigh. We're getting the bottom of we're getting the adductors as well here, the bottoms, the kind of the distal ends of the adductors and tendons. Now we're going to move it toward the big meat portion of the adductors. So our adductor magnus, brevis is a little bit higher, but magnus, minimus. I have a minimus, probably not. I could be wrong about that. All right, now we're going to move in. So we have our brevis in here. We have the pectinus in here. Adductor brevis, adductor magnus. Could be adductor minimus. You'll have to fact check me on that one. We're also getting portions of our sartorius. So our sartorius can start with our TFL and runs across and on the medial side of the knee. So we're also getting portions of that sartorius. And we're also obviously getting portions of the quad, which is all basically in the same area. So now we're going to get the quad. So now we're going to go perpendicular to the roller. We don't want to extend our back too much, almost like we're in a plank position. We're going to first go up to the pocket, and you should feel a sponge-sized muscle right there, especially if you bend the knee and rotate. You're going to feel it pop in and out of the roller. You'll know that you found the TFL. I'm going to straighten the knee, tuck the toe, roll up and down on that TFL. And then I'm going to just kind of rock side to side, using my other leg to kind of help me do that. And I'll show you what that looks like on the other side. And then if it really feels really tight, you might want to just hold and breathe and try to relax. Find a comfortable position on that area that you can relax into. Ooh, for me, that's just really tight. Now we're going to work our way to that quad. So we're on the top of the quad, right where it's going to start, and then we're going to press right in the a little bit more toward the middle of the quad, and then right directly in the middle of the quad, and then right below the knee, or right above the knee, and then back and forth here from the hip to the knee. I can go to the outside of the quad now, which we haven't done, and target the IT band. Your vastus lateralis is on this outside. Your vastus medius, intermedius right here in the middle. And then feeling portions of your adductors and your quads connecting in here. All right, and your TFL. So let's get the TFL on the other side. It's right here next to your pocket. It's a sponge-sized muscle. And extend that leg first. Going to try to find it. Sometimes it can be on the front to outside area of that hip. Go side to side. Remember, bending the knee and rotating at the hip is going to help you feel it. Now, for me on this side, it's not as hard and it's not as painful. So this side feels kind of looser. Feels like I can press into it with ease. So I don't feel like I need to spend a ton of time there. So that's how you should kind of go about your self-myofascial releases. All right, how does this feel? Does this seem like there's something going on? Like for me, these quads are always gonna need some work. Okay. And if you go through this very quickly, you might not be getting what you need out of it either. Okay, so I mean, if you only have a little bit of time, you got to do what you got to do. So I'm getting the top of that quad, the outside of the quad. I can rest it right above the knee on the outside. That's usually a hot spot. And basically all along this top and side of the quad. I can even find this like divot point going side to side here. Ooh. All right. So that's the quads. Now we're going to get the glutes. I'm going to cross my right over left. Make sure my left heel's underneath my left knee. I'm going to lean my body into that right side, hand on top of that top foot. And then I'm going to roll up and down. I can go side to side here. I can straighten this leg out. Okay, and I can also get a hamstring stretch here if I want. Go ahead and switch side. I can do it with my knees stacked, just like that. Cross over. Making sure that you're breathing through each roll. Remember, each roll, about 5 rolls each body part. Making sure that you're breathing through each roll. Spending more time on areas that you think might need a little bit more work. Now, if you want to get the glute meads, kind of have to get on the side of the roller and bring your top leg behind and go right above the glute. That's your glute med. That one is a smaller one like the TFL and connects into the TFL, so it's hard to disassociate these two muscles in your glutes. So I like that top foot behind, and then I roll kind of on the front to the back. And you can tell, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I haven't gotten this muscle. This is your glute med right here. You can tell by, if you just try to press your knee into the ground, it'll turn on. And then you can kind of redirect yourself where it was and then go there. All right, so that is foam rolling the whole body. All right, so obviously it's a long demonstration, but you have to understand how to get into those positions. And then you have to spend a ton of time rolling the body out and making sure that you're really, have assessed each body part. So after that assessment, you can say, all right, I got some major issues here. Maybe I need to make sure I pay attention to this portion of my body. Or maybe I need to lay off portions of this part of the body because, I can't, it really stung when I, went into the shoulders, or maybe you need to lay off of the pull-ups for that day. So that's what I mean by it's also an assessment. So if anything else, it's an assessment of muscle density and tissue resilience, as well as the adaptability, the pliability of the muscle to be able to kind of just move into whatever positions you want. If it's kind of feels like it's pressing back into you and your nervous system locks up and your whole body kind of cramps or kind of tenses up, then you got something going on there that you want to address. All right. Now we're going to go through mobility. I'm going to grab a sip of water. If you have questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them. Best way to squat with history of dislocated knee. Wow, I'm not the person to answer that question. All right. let's go ahead and talk about flexibility of the feet. We'll move our way up the chain and we'll end up with our neck, okay? So we're gonna start with mobility training. Specifically, you want to static stretch the muscles or move or do some low circular motions with your muscles or joints, okay? So for example, I could focus on ankle circles or stretching during this portion of the workout or both. I can call them the same thing, stretching and mobility. Either way, we're doing low intensity movements for each major body joint and part before we go into strengthening that portion of the body. So starting with the ankles and feet, one thing is understanding that toe mobility is really important. You should have access to your toes. So you should be able to lift all of your 10 toes up off the ground. You should be able to kind of push all those 4 outside toes down and have your big toe up. And then press your big toe down and all big 4 toes up. And then all toes up and then piano it from pinky toe to big toe. Okay, that's really important that you can move your toes. If you can't do that, that's something that you want to start doing more often. You know, be barefoot around the house if you can and move those toes and feet. Okay, when it comes to ankle dorsiflexion or bringing the knee over the toe, as you see my ankle, my back ankle's in ankle dorsiflexion when I do that. And then when I push off the toe, it is ankle plantar flexion. So you have ankle plantar flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. So we dorsiflex our ankles when we squat, which is why squatting is a great ankle mobility exercise. Okay. Also, just getting that knee past the toe is going to stress the calf and the soleus. So what we like to do is push your hands into a wall or a barrier. You're going to put all of your weight on your front foot. You're going to put your back foot behind you like a kickstand. We're going to push into the barrier. We're going to put our foot about 5 inches away or 4 inches away, enough to where when we touch enough to where we can touch the barrier with our knee. Now, if we can't touch the barrier with our knee, we need to just go a little bit forward. Okay, and this is a good assessment. If we can get at least 4 inches, that's great. 5 inches is probably better away from the wall or barrier. So we're going to line up with our foot in front of the barrier about 4 to 5 inches. We're going to push into the barrier. All the weight is on the front toes and heel. I'm going to bring the knee past the toe without bringing my back heel off the ground. And I'm going to press or touch the wall or barrier. I'm going to look straight ahead, touch, and then come back. I'm going to go for 5. These are called ankle rocks. So 5 wall ankle rocks. Then I can also progress this in phase 2 by bringing the knee over the big toe and then also the pinky toe. Okay, going in all 3 directions. So outside the big toe, in front of the middle toe, outside the pinky toe. Okay, so then following that up, okay, I could also do this with a bench or a box. And I'll do my other leg in this half kneeling position. Okay, what I'm going to do is basically the same thing, but in a half kneeling position. Okay, so I'm going to bring the knee over the toe, touch maybe the box or the bench, touch, and then come back. Okay, again, I'm going to go for 5 of these half kneeling ankle mobility rocks. Try not to let that back heel leave the ground. And then in phase 2 or 3, I can bring the knee over the toe or the pinky toe, working multi-direction of that ankle. Okay, so that would be the first start for ankle mobility dorsiflexion. Next, for ankle plantar flexion, it's really important to have a mat because the ground can be pretty tough on people's feet. And if you need a pillow or a pad, to help with this one, you can do that. So what we're gonna do is you can put the pillow or pad underneath. We're just gonna sit down on the ankles with our ankles in plantar flexion. We should be able to just get in this position passively. Some people, this might hurt the top of the ankle, so that's why we can have higher pads. Okay. Then eventually we'll get rid of the pad. We should be able to hold this position for up to a minute without any pain. Okay. Then after I hold this for about a minute, I can work side to side. Okay, and at first you might hold it for 10 seconds, and then you're gonna rock side to side a couple times on day one. Then you might hold it for 15 seconds, rock side to side. Then you might hold it for 30 seconds, and then slowly progress until this has no pain. Okay, so that's how I would kind of work with plantar flexion of the ankle. Then after that, I'm gonna curl the toes. So now I'm gonna get the toes involved a little bit more. So the big toe is in extension. The small toes are also in extension in this hands and knees position. Then I'm going to sit on my heels, my ankles in dorsiflexion. So I'm also getting ankle dorsiflexion and a quad stretch since my butt is touching my heel. My knees are all the way bent. I'm getting a knee stretch here. And then I'm going back to that tabletop position. So I'm going to rock back and then rock forward. Okay. Now I'm going to look up, extend the back, and then when I come up, I'm going to round the back and look through the hands. Okay, this is a hip rock. You want to perform about 5 of these hip rocks. And this is a nice ankle mobility as well as spinal mobility exercise and toe mobility exercise. All right, now for the ankles, you can perform something pretty basic, which is just the downward dog, which I like because of getting the shoulders involved. So hands are spread out. All 10 fingers are touching the ground. Hands a little wider than the shoulders. Feet are about hip width apart. Knees are right underneath the hips. Then from here, we got our feet curled. And then we're going to press into the ground, bring our knees off the ground, and lift the hips up toward the sky by extending or straightening out our knees. And we're going to look at our knees or feet, push through by bringing the head through the shoulders, and then you can kind of move the heels up and down here for a dynamic calf stretch. And just focus on your inhale through your nose and exhale out through the mouth. Now, if this hurts your wrists or shoulders, then you want to regress or not perform this one, the downward dog exercise. Okay, so I would hold this for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you can play with bent knees one at a time. You can also progress to one-legged, putting a little bit more pressure and emphasis on that calf and hamstring, as well as splitting the hips into extension and flexion. So you can progress downward dog and add a little bit more variety if you're working ankle flexion or dorsiflexion and also hamstring and shoulder mobility. So that's the lower posterior, the calf and ankle. Now we're going to work our way to the quad. So one way you can get the quad is sideline. Now, not all people are going to be able to reach for their foot, so you could take a rag or a towel and hold it around the ankle and hold here. So this is a sideline quad stretch. Okay, you can perform this standing as well, next to a barrier. Simple quad stretch here that I would probably perform in my first 3 to 6 weeks. And then I would progress to something like a half kneeling stretch. You can use a box or a wall. Place your knee on a pad. Okay. And you should feel a quad and also hip flexor stretch here. Okay. You can get your knee as close as you can to the wall or the devices you want, but you want to slowly kind of work your way in. So if you're out here to start, in your first couple weeks, that's totally fine. But if this feels painful or hurts that knee, then get out of this position immediately. You should eventually be able to hold this position without any pain, and we should be able to breathe in this position while we're here, okay? So that's nostril inhale, exhale out the mouth, feeling that stretch through the quad, maybe even the hip flexor. Hip flexor, or if you push the hips forward, you're gonna feel that maybe a little bit more. But we don't need to force that. All we need to do is really just squeeze that back glute and we'll feel it, okay? All right, so that's a quad, half kneeling quad stretch. You can also do the standing quad stretch. So keeping our ankle in dorsiflexion, not plantar flexion, and then allowing our knee to just press into the wall. And you're gonna feel that in the back quad. I really like this one actually. It's easy to perform if you have a wall and some space to kind of balance yourself. I like it better than this because of the way the ankle and foot is pressed into the device. Okay, so that's how I'm going to target my quads. For my hamstrings you can target many different ways: seated, standing, half kneeling, and also on your back. So I'll show you some simple ones you can perform on your back. First, just laying on your back, straightening one leg over your hip, and then trying to actively get this bottom foot to press into the ground and trying to keep that knee as close to the ground as I can. Try not to look like this, okay? So first, hold on to the back of the hamstring, relax the head to the ground. Slide it back. And then I'm going to extend the knee so that the foot is over the knee. I want my bottom foot and ankle in dorsiflexion. And then again, just about 3 to 5 inhales here. Through the nose, inhale, exhale out the mouth. For each static stretch, you want to think about 3 to 5 inhales and exhales, or at least 15 seconds of stretch, okay? So 15 to 30 seconds is the goal. Then from here, I can target my ankles. I'm going to create a full circle, pretending I'm outlining a clock. So going up to 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6, 3, all the way back to 12, and then 3, 6, 9, 12. You can do this with your head relaxed on the ground. And then I can also bend and straighten the knee, but as I do that, internally and externally rotate at the knee. So this is internal rotation at the knee, external rotation at the knee, extension of the knee, internal flexion, external extension, and then I can reverse that, flexion, internal, extension, external. And then switching side. So getting a hamstring target stretch here. 3 to 5 inhales or 15 to 30 seconds. Inhale through the nose, exhale out the mouth. And then we're going to perform our ankle circles all the way around the clock. 2 to 3 ankle circles. And then we're going to circle the other way. After our ankle circles, our ankle cars will go with knee cars, so bending in, extending out. Bend in, up, out. And then reverse it. So these are called knee cars, or just kind of dynamic knee hamstring stretches actually. So, I mean, you can call it either or. From here, we've just gotten the hamstrings. Now we can kind of work our glutes since we're already here and cross my right over left. And I'm just going to press that right knee forward. I might feel it on the outside of that hip. for option 1. Option 2, I'm going to reach for the thigh. If I can't reach the thigh, maybe I can reach for the leg. I'm going to hold here. And then option 3 is pushing that knee forward and pulling the foot toward the body. And then also extending that knee. When you do that, it's going to press that knee into the ankle and push you into more external rotation. And then for option 2, I can hold on to both feet and pull the feet into the body. And feel it really on that outside glute, piriformis, glute max area. Okay, now I'm going to try the other side. Option 1. Option 2. Option 3. And then from here, we can now stretch the adductors. Nice, easy, simple stretch is bringing the hands outside of the knees and pulling those knees out and apart. Inhale through the nose, exhale out the mouth. I can also bring my hands on the inside and pull the knees toward the shoulders. And I can also move the knees up and down here. Okay, I can windshield wiper the legs here as well. I can hold. And this is also a modified 90-90 position. So supine 90-90, which we'll get into next. So we're going to rock and roll. So we're going to rock back and roll forward. A nice spinal dynamic exercise. And then playing with some more gymnastic things. And you can do this more in your dynamic, but if you're already on the ground and you want to do a little bit more grounded movements, you can, what I like to do is the roll, so rolling from back to stomach, and then from stomach to back. Okay, and then knees to chest, back to your back, stomach. Try to roll one more time. And then knees back into the chest, okay? You can also play with crossing the knee and seeing if you can stabilize the body as you go back and forth. And then you can play with some core options, which we can get into later during the activation, okay? So the next stretches we'll perform are thoracic spinal stretches. So the first one is in the collapsed kneeling position. I'll give you different options. So if this one doesn't work, got some other ones. But what we're gonna do is knees are wide, toes are touching. The elbows are gonna go in front of the knees. Then from here, I'm gonna place one hand on the outside lat or chest wall. I'm gonna rotate and then press into the ground and look up toward the ceiling. I'll try to get my chin over my shoulder, which is the hardest part. Breathe, inhale through the nose. And on your exhale, try to go deeper in your stretch. Again, 3 to 5 inhales and exhales for each stretch. All right, let's go ahead and switch side. Looking all the way up. Okay, and then another option is the V stance. So what I'm going to do here is provide some pads. Place my hands on the pads, feet are as wide as possible. And then one hand down, one hand up toward the sky. T-spine and adductors here. Again, trying to get the chin over the shoulder. Try not to bring your chin into your chest. And then switch. Remember, each stretch is about 3 to 5 inhales and exhales. Okay, and so we've stretched out all the lower body parts. Okay, hips, hamstrings, quads, calves. We've also worked the upper body, and now we're moving a little bit more toward the shoulders and neck. So now I'm just going to reach overhead to anything I can grab, whatever it is, and just allow myself to kind of hang a little bit. Breathe into that. I can rotate forward and back as I hold this stretch. And then I can also just hold, not full body dead hang. I want to use my feet a little bit. So about 50% of my body weight. Then I'm going to go one arm at a time. When I do that, I want to make sure that my ribs aren't opened up. I'm going to close my ribs, look down or straight ahead, and then reach my arm overhead. Breathe into that. You can create a little bit of isometric tension when you do these at the end of your stretch, so make sure that you passively just relax first. And then if you want to, you can perform some isometric contractions by pulling and then relaxing, or pushing into the device and relaxing. So pulling into the device is going to cause a PNF stretch reflex, and then pushing into the device is an active isolated stretch. Okay, and just relaxing would just be called a static stretch in your end range. Okay, a passive stretch really is just kind of not really doing anything. So you want to think more of static stretching, just getting to the end range and holding there. Now we can perform a row-like stretch or reaching out in front. Okay, instead of reaching overhead, now we're using a little bit different muscles here, more in this, some in the scap and also in the lat. One arm forward, one arm back, and then switch. And then I can go from horizontal to vertical. Both hands together. And then I can also use the barrier for a chest stretch. Feeling it across the chest here. Stepping one foot across, whatever feels best for the stretch. And then you can also tee it out. So these would all be some upper body stretching options for the chest and shoulders, especially before your chest day, if that's what you do, and definitely during your workouts that you have a lot of pushing exercises. All right, so now our body's pretty much all ready to go. Now we're ready to kind of go into the activation stage. So we went through southpaw fascial release, then I took you through mobility, and you're obviously not going to do it as long as I did. I'm kind of teaching you as I go. Now we're going to get into the different types of activation exercises that you can perform, okay? So if you have any questions, please let me know. Try to answer them. All right, so we're gonna start off with some supine activation exercises. You can perform 2 to 3 activation exercises, but I'm gonna give you a lot of different options, just like I'm giving you a lot of options for mobility and self-mount fascial release. So, starting with the leg lower, grab a band. We're going to hold the band together first, and then we're gonna bring the band around the arch of the foot. From here, we're gonna hold each end of the band and pull the elbows toward the ground. It's good tension in the lats. We're also able to hold this foot over the hip. The bottom foot, we're gonna have in dorsiflexion or toe toward the sky, head's relaxed. I'm going to bring both feet together. And now with this free foot, I'm gonna take an inhale through my nose and then exhale, slowly lower down as I exhale, and then inhale, recoil, and then exhale. Okay, so it's going to be an exhale on the way down, and then an inhale on the way up. Okay, if you feel like that's too much tension, just go like this. Okay, use the full loop. All right, and then let's go ahead and get the other side. Go for 3 to 5 on each side. So this is a hamstring activation exercise, as well as a pelvic activation drill for our hips. Okay, really important. We can do this without the band, so not supported leg lower. Okay, we can also do this. We can regress this by bending the knees, just like this. Exhale on the way down. Okay, we want a nice arch in the back, but we don't want to be too arched or too flat. Okay. And so we're just exhaling as we lower. So those are called leg lowers. You can also turn those into dead bugs. Okay, you can hold on to some weights. You can also just do this reaching. So a lot of different options for activating the core. And then the leg lowers are gonna be more hamstring related. So all core, all hamstring for some of those. Then we have our get up. What we do is we hold on to a bell. And what we're doing is we're activating our core and also the shoulder and scap. So a lot of stuff going on here. So first starting with a quarter get up. So getting up to the elbow to start. And then option 1, come down. Or option 2, you're going to extend the elbow and lift the hips in the star pattern. And option 3, step back and through, side, bend up, and then step all the way through and up with your arm overhead. Okay, if this is too much weight on your shoulder, then just do it without any weight to start. Get a lunge back, hand down, step through, slowly lower. Okay, so this is our full get up, nice core activation exercise. Also activating a whole body, basically from head to toe. Nice one to put in right before your strength training, because it's going to get a lot of moving parts going and activated. Okay, so the activation series is a lot of just dynamic or stability exercises, okay, that concentrate on specific bringing together the body or just isolating certain aspects like your hips or your core stabilizers. So now we're going to move into some different types of activation strategies. Okay, one is using a midi band So you can use a mini band for the hips. What you can do is just put it on the outsides of the arches. Okay, feet are about shoulder width apart to start, hands at the hips. Then we're gonna hinge forward, hips back, head forward. And we're gonna step to the side. We're gonna go out and then back to our starting spot. Our starting spot, our feet should always be under our shoulders, so we don't want to be too narrow, okay? So feet, shoulders, a little bit wider, back to shoulder. Okay, hips back, head forward slightly. Okay, we want to make sure that we're pushing the knees out, and then you can even hold on to your glute max and medius here to feel those muscles kind of turning on as we move side to side. So great activation for the glutes and hip abductors. Then we're going to show you one for the hip flexors. So this is just a prone hip flexor activation drill. So we get in the push-up position and we're going to flex the hip so that our knee is right under the chest. Don't push into the ground with the toe. The toe is off the ground. Paper length and hold, and then come back. Pull up, pull the band up, and then come back. Opposite leg is straight, glute is engaged, and then front hip flexor engaged, and core is engaged, and then switch. Big exhales as you're holding this position. Hands are under the shoulders, rounded upper back. Foot's not touching the ground. And that would be a prone hip flexor activation drill. And then I'll show you a supine hip flexor activation. So heels are off the ground. I'm going to pull the knee over the hip. Toes toward the sky, head down, hold 5 to 10 seconds, and then switch. I can also do this with my heel down, focus more on this bottom hamstring, or I can focus just on this top hip flexor if I keep the heel off the ground. So phase 1 might be off the ground, phase 2, heel might be on the ground. Again, 10, 20, 30-second holds, 1 to 2 sets each leg, okay? All right, so those are some hip abduction and flexion activation drills. Now we're gonna get into hip internal and external rotation. So we're gonna bring the band above the knee, knees are out, and then we're gonna internally rotate at one hip, and then externally rotate. Keep the outside hip or other hip externally rotated. It's going to be internal and then out. In, out, in, out. And then switch. If you can, keep the whole foot on the ground. And then you can go both X or out and both in. Okay. Now after we've done that, we can go ahead and perform some squats. True activation or strength. See? Push the bands out, knees out, hands forward on the way down. And then stand right back up like you're being measured. Reach, squat, stand. Let those knees bow out. Okay. And we can turn this into some dynamic locomotor. So adding in a side shuffle with the band. Okay, but that might go more toward the dynamic work. Okay, you can also perform some marching drills. if you don't mind the feeling, you might have to wear pants for that. Okay, those would be more dynamic locomotor. Right now, we're more focused on the activation. So for the shoulders, we can do band pull aparts for activating them. So if you have a band, great. Hands, palms facing up. Okay. And from here, hands facing up, knees are bent 90. Gonna pull out, straighten the elbows. Try not to arch the back. Just make a T here, feet under the shoulders. Exhale, expand, slowly relax. You can hold for about 2 to 3 seconds. And then you can switch this up or progress this by diagonal band pulls apart. Both sides for about 2 to 3 reps. And you can do these half kneeling or kneeling as well. Okay. All right, so those are band pull aparts. Those activate the back of the shoulders. We can also perform some weighted lift-offs using our hands. So for a shoulder activation, lay prone or on your stomach, tee out the arms, hands hold on to some plates, head down, lift the plates off the ground. If it's too heavy, lighten the load or don't use any load. Hold for about 5 to 10 seconds. And squeeze the quads and knees, head slightly lifted, and then relax. You can also make a Y position here, thumbs up, and then same thing. And then we can go with a W position. Five to 10 second holds, 3 reps for W, 3 reps Y, and 3 reps for T. And then last one you can do is I, arms next to the side. Palms can be facing up or down here. Okay, so try that out for activating the shoulders. Next, we're going to talk about activating the glutes, most important muscle, especially when it comes to locomotion, running, and sprinting. Our feet are going to be about shoulder width apart with our toes up. We want to get our knees about not 90 degrees, okay, more like, I don't know, what is that, 65, toes up. Nice small arch in the back, but not too much. Head down, squeeze the glutes, lift the hips and hold. So this is your standard 2-legged hip lift. And then come back down after about 5 to 10 seconds. And then come back up 3 to 5 reps here. Exhale continuously as you're holding if you can. Like you're blowing out through a straw. And then come back down, okay? So that's your 2-legged, then 1-legged, pulling one knee to the chest. Same thing, but trying to keep this knee as close as you can, even putting a tennis ball here if you want. Exhaling and holding 3 to 5 seconds is a little bit harder, so you won't hold it as long. Making sure that you switch, you get each side, focusing on that glute that's squeezing and contracting and pulling this hip flexor up toward the chest. Okay, so that's your 2-legged and 1-legged hip lift. Perform 3 to 5 reps at about 3 to 5 second holds for each and a little bit longer for 2-legged, okay? So next we have our shoulder activation or floor slide. Same position, knees are bent, arch is gone. Now we want to squeeze the glutes so that our back is flat. So this is going to restrict our methods of compensation, which allows us to access more range of motion. From here, we're gonna press the hands and elbows, wrists and shoulders into the ground. Squeeze your fists. Take an inhale. And exhale out the mouth as you reach overhead. Blow out like you're blowing out a straw. And then inhale, come back down. And then exhale. And if you can, inhale, come down. Exhale, reach over your head. Keep exhaling. Get it all out. Keep that tension in your belly as you inhale and come down. Exhale, reach overhead. Good. So that is a shoulder activation drill. Now we can get into some push-ups and bear crawls. So push-up activation drill or just a push-up hold is a great way to pack the shoulders and also work on core stability and wrist strength. From here, I'm just getting in that push-up position with a straight spine, with my head just slightly looking up about a foot or two. And then from here, I want to just shrug my shoulders up and then shrug my shoulders down. Up and down. Up and down. Okay. So I feel pretty good there. The next thing I'm going to do is bend the knees. And then I'm going to bring the knees off the ground just an inch and pull. Inhale through my nose. Long exhale out in my mouth. Rounded upper back. Big exhales. All right, the next thing I'm going to challenge is some shoulder taps while I'm in that position. If this is too much on your wrist, you can just go into a forearm position here and try a forearm plank for this next one, or a forearm knee plank. That works for you. Otherwise, the bear tap, hands and knees off the ground an inch. You're going to touch the opposite shoulder and then slowly come down. Try not to move your hips or knees. Okay, you can exhale through that. You can pack air and hold it as you do that. Whatever is the best breathing strategy for you. So those are some core activation exercises, upper body, core, and lower body exercises you can perform before your dynamic warm-up. Now we're getting into our dynamic warm-up. So things like split squats would be a strength dynamic warm-up. And then I have things like locomotor dynamic warm-ups as well. So our split squat will be one in the half kneeling position, and then standing straight up, slow lower, tap, and push off that front leg. And then switch. Going for about 3 to 5 reps of the split squat. Okay. Next one is going to be a toe touch to squat. Feet are slightly out, shoulder width apart. I'm going to touch my toes, bend over, squat down, look up, or look forward. I can play around with some rotational reaches here if I want. I can play around with some internal shoulder rotation stretches here and some T-spine thoracic rotation. Then I'm going to go to that second step and then back to the first step. So 1, stand, 2, touch the toes, 3, squat, and then reverse on the way up. Here's your toe touch to squat. So this will be a dynamic strength warm-up exercise. Next is your lateral squat, getting the adductors. Feet are forward and as wide as you can. What we do first is sink into one hip, reach forward, and then stand. Same side, 3 to 5 reps on each side. Okay. Now after we've stretched and lengthened these tissues, now we're kind of activating or strengthening them. Okay, getting them ready for some higher intensity portions of our exercises. Another good dynamic strength is your one leg reach or one arm reach. So feet are hip width. My hand and foot are going to move at the same time. Okay, same sided hand and foot. And then stand right back up. You can do it in that marching position if you want, or just dig the toe into the ground. So this is your single leg reach. Reach toward a wall, use a ball, a very light ball, to touch something if you need to. Have some tactile cueing. And then you can progress this by reaching like we did with the ankle, instead of just straight across the body and away from the body. Okay, so just raising the level every 3 weeks. So if you use this in your first 3 weeks, then make sure that you switch it up. All right, now we're on to our locomotor exercises. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go over the march, most fundamental. Okay, so hands are going to be underneath the chin. First, we want to think just a nice loose swing. And my hand should naturally kind of go right in front of the chin or right below it. My arms will go into extension and then flexion, but with my elbows bent on the way forward, extended on the way back. Okay, so it's not arms like this, it's like this. Once I get that down, opposite leg will go up. I want to think the arm will go up first, not the leg, because you won't be able to catch up to the leg. When we do this, we want the toe up, knee as high as the hip, and back straight. And then you want to be able to do that in a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 count. It's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, after about 5 to 10 seconds, you're probably going to be winded. Take about 10 to 20 seconds to get your energy back. Now in this dynamic warm-up portion of the exercises, we are starting to get into that power zone. So more explosive, more jumping efforts here. So now we're going to start getting into CNS. So after we kind of warm the body up with the mobility, then we get the body going with dynamic locomotor skills, like we're doing now with the marching. Now we're going to turn the marching into skipping. So just starting with a march in place, then following that up with a skip. Okay. And then our skipping, marching patterns can all be done in all different ranges of motion. Okay. Okay, planes of motion. I can go to the side. Okay, either way. Very hard to do it. And also I can go backwards. I can do that skipping or marching. Okay. Think you can go side to side, forward and backward. On day 1, you want to think linear forward exercises. Day 2, side to side exercises. Okay, so starting with a march, going to the skip, then you can go into high knees, so a little bit higher velocity, mimicking a sprint. Okay, if you don't think you're warmed up yet, you can go with some lower dynamic stretches like knee pulls, cradles, and heel to butts. So the knee pulls, a step, knee to chest, push that bottom toe into the ground. And for that, you want to think about 10 yards or about 3 on each side. Then leg cradle, okay, pull on the outside of the knee, pull over top of the ankle, and pull up toward the shoulder and chest. That's your leg cradle. Then you have your heel to butt, reach forward, back to center, step, heel to butt, reach forward, back to center, and step, and switch. Okay, so there's your heel to butt. We have our walking high knees. Okay, you can do skipping high knees. Skipping straight, you can do straight leg skip, sorry. And then you can also do high or power skips. Getting as high as you can up in the air. Okay, so those would be some locomotor options on linear day. For lateral day, when you're moving side to side, I think you got your lateral shuffle. Okay. Then you have your karaoke where your legs cross over. Okay, you have your ladder drills, like your scissors drill, or you can just use a line, side to side. Okay, you have your lateral bound at a 45-degree angle forward, or you can just go side to side. You can also hop 1, 2, side, 1, 2, and then medial. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so now we're getting into our plyometric dynamic. So we went through strength dynamic, locomotor dynamic. Now we're in power dynamic, okay, which is your plyometrics, jumping, hopping, bounding. As you see, I'm already going into the bounds and hopping. We have our linear hop. Pretend that you're jumping over a dumbbell or kettlebell, landing softly and sticking. The landing is the most important part for beginners. If you wobble a little, that's fine. You don't want to stay too glued to where you're going to get injured either. So a linear hop, you want to think 1, 2, 3, and then switch, and then rest. And only about 2 to 3 sets at most for beginners for your linear hop, okay? Lateral hop is going outside, so if I'm right-legged, I'm jumping on my right or hopping on my right, going outside, that would be a lateral hop. And then I have medial hops going toward the inside leg, okay? Your lateral medial hops, those are a little bit harder. And what's better for hopping, especially for beginners, is using a low box, because you're gonna help absorb your landing and your body weight. So when you jump up, it's less force and deceleration on the knee joint, so which actually makes it a little bit easier. So you can do your linear hop. Okay, make sure you're not around any unsafe stuff. You have your medial hop, and then you have your lateral hop. Okay, so all those hops are great to perform. We only need about 15 reps per leg for hopping. Okay, when it comes to jumping, you have your squat jumps, 3, 5 reps, hands to the hips, hinge back, swing the arms, reach up. Okay, you can call a squat jump if your hands are here and you squat and jump. Your vertical jump, you're really trying to get as high as you can up, okay? So vertical jump would be, I'd say, 100% effort. Squat jump is probably 90%. Okay. So if you're being measured for vertical, that's 100. But squat jump, I think 80 to 90%. It's getting a good explosive hip extension, knee extension, and plantar flexion. That triple extension here. Trying to look straight ahead in the air, okay? There's your squat jump, vertical jump, swing the arms down, reach up, and you're trying to get up as high as you can in the air. Okay? Only 1 to 3 reps for your vertical jump. I'd say 3 to 5 max. All right, so those are your plyometric jumps. Now we can get into med ball slamming and throwing. So now we've done our plyometric work. Then you want to pair that or triset that with med ball and a heavy implement power exercise, such as a snatch or a kettlebell swing or a hang clean. Okay, you could also perform a weighted jump squat if you want. Okay, so think a hop, a throw, and a snatch would be a good triset. Or if you're a beginner, you might just do one at a time with some rest, or just superset 2 of these together. And for some of you, you can add in a core exercise instead of a third power exercise, okay? So depending on your level. Beginners, I would probably do 1 or 2, maybe a hop, and then maybe med ball throw. Novice, I go hop, med ball throw, and core. And for advanced, I'd go hop, med ball throw, and then a hang clean, okay? Or hang clean, med ball throw, and hop, whatever you want. If you needed to add a little bit more time between reps, that'd be fine, or sets, but making sure you're doing low volume, high intensity for your power work. I think 3 to 5 exercises, 3 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 minutes between each exercise if you really want to get true power results. But if you don't have a lot of time, partner, pair, or triset power exercises together. Okay, so you would partner a hop with a throw with a snatch if you're advanced, or just one at a time. So for your med ball throws, I'll show you the overhead slam. So feet are about shoulder width apart. Hands are holding onto the ball in front of the chest. Start. Then I'm going to look down as I reach the ball overhead, and then slam and catch. You don't want to fall the ball toward the ground, or you could get hit in the face. One thing you want to think of is, can you throw the ball without flexing the spine, and then just catch the ball just like that. Another mistake people make is they extend too much to the back, swing down, and don't bend the knees at all. Okay, so think slight bend in the knees, right when you throw, and then back, and then catch, and then reset. For this exercise, you can go 5 to 10 reps, 2 to 3 sets. Okay, now for your overhead alternating slam, my feet are going to be positioned perpendicular to where I'm going to be throwing and rotating across. And I'm going to switch each way, bringing the ball overhead, elbows bend, slam into the ground, back toe is pushing into the ground, heels off, and then I rotate and switch my feet placement. So that's the overhead alternating med ball throw. Okay, it's another great power exercise. We also have our med ball side tosses. Okay, feet are a little bit wider, elbow goes up nice and high, and really pull it through like you're about to basically batting, like you're a baseball player. Okay, we also have our overhead throws with a step. Okay, you can do that with your feet glued into the ground as well. You can face the wall in the kneeling position with your glutes squeezed, not back, with a chest toss, chest throw. You can also do a scoop here. And you can also go half kneeling with a one-arm throw. And we can go half kneeling to stand. Okay, so you can do a lot of different med ball exercises. So those will be some lightweight or light implement power movement strategies before your strength work. Okay, so in my next video, we're going to go over heavy implement power training and all of our strength work for our workout. Okay, then we'll talk about conditioning and high intensity interval training. All right, so look forward to part 2. We'll see y'all later.